Mr. Fallon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for all the witnesses for taking your time. A veteran myself, and I apologize, Air Force, for 4 years. I found it interesting because when you live something directly, that was 30 years ago. And dare I say now that we're in 2024, Mr. Chairman, almost 35 years ago. And one of the first things they did when we in process, as I was a young second lieutenant, 22 years old, was they told us about how the military works, and there's zero tolerance for isms. There will not be sexism in the military. There will not be racism in the military. Now, of course, when you have an organization of, at the time, almost 2 million, you're going to have your outliers. But it was the extreme exception and absolutely not the rule. And they told us that if you participate in any of these things, you will be separated from the military because you are not someone that can function in a cohesive unit, in the branch of the service. And I absolutely loved that because contrary to so many people that foment division in this chamber, that's how my parents raised us. That's the majesty of living in the 20th and now 21st century in America. It is racism is a diminishing phenomena every day. Does it exist? Of course, but it's diminishing every day. So I found it interesting when I got this job in January 21 that there was a focus in the new administration on white extremism, political extremism, particularly white supremacy, that kind of movement in the military. So I have Mr. Is it Sigilly? Sigilly?
Yes, sir, you're great.
Okay, great name and challenging one. So
it's challenging for everyone.
It's a little scary. Do you believe that white extremism is an issue and a problem, let's say a pervasive problem in the military today?
It's been several years since I've been out. I really don't know, Congressman.
Okay. Well, this administration clearly did because they had a stand down where the entire military, obviously in stages, stood down to get, I think it was 4 hours of training on the dangers of white extremism. And I found that interesting because then I like to live with data in the real world. So I asked the different branches of the service, the commanding officers, the 4-star generals, how many people in that last fiscal year were separated due to white extremist activity. And in the United States Army, with at the time 1.1 million active reserve and National Guardsmen, 1.1 million, that number was 9. 9. So not quite 1 in a million, but damn near close. In the United States Marine Corps, reservists and active duty, I think it was 222,000 at the time. That number was 4. 4 out of almost 250,000. And the Navy and Air Force were begrudgingly finally came forward and said, yes, our numbers would be commensurate with those numbers, so single digits. And then when you factor in the man hours lost when you stand down for 4 hours and talk about an issue that's not a pervasive issue, you're talking hundreds of millions of dollars to satisfy a political objective with the United States military. And then, you know, we talk about diversity is our strength and this and that. I think merit's our strength. And I think, as obviously an unabashed conservative, that success, talent, ability, skill comes in all shapes, sizes, and shades. That's what I have seen in my experience. There are geniuses, and their pigmentation is completely immaterial to what's on their mind and their education and their drive and their talent and ability. So merit should be first, because I think that we would agree, we have a great panel here. Colonel Lohmeyer, would you agree that the Chinese military is a grave threat to not only this country, but really freedom and liberty in the world?
Yes, I agree with that, both as a foreign adversary and also as an information facilitator domestically here in this country. And
Mr. Thibodeau?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Sigilly?
Yes.
Okay. So we're all in agreement. I think most members of Congress would agree. There's 435 in this chamber. Probably get to 433. There's always a couple outliers, as we know. But what I find interesting about that is the Chinese military diverse ethnically? No. Because diversity has nothing to do with military strength. It's about merit. And I think that in this country, we are the most diverse major country in the world, and I think that's wonderful and beautiful. And, but we need to focus more on merit and the best, because we hear this so much here, these standards of, well, we need diversity, equity, inclusion, and things of that nature, which again, merit, that will all sort itself out. Because if anybody in this room needed life-saving brain surgery tomorrow, you know what your criteria would be? The best. You wouldn't give a rat's ass what nationality this person was, what ethnicity, what gender, what religion, what God they worship. None of it. Who's the best surgeon in the world to preserve my life so I can live it for my family, my kids, and my country? I want to thank the witnesses again. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for this great topic, and I yield back.
Thank you. Good point. Mr. Walls?
Thank you, Mr.